So, so thankful, so thankful for today, and so thankful for our teams. And man, it's been a great day from Thursday night through this service. And I know we've had a bunch of our athletes here, and I can't. I know I'll forget a team if I try to hit everyone, but I know at least in this service, I got guys from the football team that are here and a bunch of our baseball team guys who are hanging in this area. Will you give it up for at least those two groups that I know that I see football and baseball? But I also know that throughout the weekend, we've had soccer, we've had softball, we've had track, we've had men's and women's basketball, volleyball, just a bunch of different sports and a bunch of different athletes that have been with us. And I asked several of them that question that you just saw. And the question was simply this: how do you contribute to your team? And I want to ask you that exact same question today. How do you contribute to your team? And I know some of you immediately go, "Oh, Josh, I don't play on a team." No, probably not, right? Most of us here don't. But we all have a team that we're on. Like everybody has a team that you are a part of right now. That your team might not be an athletic team, all right? Some of you are athletes and you're in college and you go, "Hey, this is my team. I know I have my team." Some of you are athletes in high school and you go, "This is my team." But we all have teams. Let me show it to you. If you're married, that's your team. That let's say you live at home, you got mom and dad in the house, maybe your siblings in the house, that's your team. That you go to school tomorrow, that's your team. That you go to work maybe this afternoon or tomorrow, that's your team. That you have a friend group that you hang out in, that's your team. That you have some people that you do life with, that's your team. That you're here at church, this is your team. That even here at church with thousands of people who call the Rock home, inside that big team, you probably have smaller teams. That you might serve on the parking lot team, or serve on the coffee team, or in the Kids Rock team, on the tech team, or the worship team. That's your team. At work, you might have hundreds or thousands of people that you work with, but then at work, you're on that big team, but then you have your grade level that you teach with, that's your team, or you have the people on the floor with you that you work at the hospital, that's your team. Do you see what I'm getting at? That we all have teams. It's your family, it's your marriage, it's your friendships, it's your relationship. Those are your teammates. So if that is true, then let me ask you this again. What do you contribute to your team? Like, what do you contribute to your marriage? What do you contribute to your friend group? What do you contribute at church? What do you contribute at work? What do you contribute to people at school? What contribution are you making to the team? My goal today is that all of us, every one of us here in this room, everybody watching online right now, that we will add value to our teams and contribute in a way that matters. You see, we're in this series and we're calling it One More. We've been in it for several weeks now, that the whole idea of the theme is helping one more person take one more step. And we spent the first couple weeks talking about one more person. We spent the last couple weeks talking about one more step, that we want to help you take one more step towards Christ. And I've said it in this ABCD way that we've talked about when it comes to your steps with Christ, that we need to accept Christ and we need to belong. Today we're going to talk about contributing. Next week we're going to talk about discipling. And I love it because it should make it easy, ABCDs. Yet at the same time, what I've said every week is we have to be careful, because if we're not careful, we'll think it means linear. That I first do A, and then I do B, and then I do C, and then D. But that's not it at all. That instead of thinking linear, we have to think like we're just stacking. We're simply trying to stack steps one on top of another. Now, athletes, you should get this easily. Like, let me just talk to the baseball team for just a second. You're in fall ball right now. We know the main season starts in the spring, but everything you do today matters when it comes to the spring. Am I right? Right? It's okay to say yes in church, okay? that we're stacking steps, that we're hitting the weight room today, that we're going to the pen some more, that we're stacking steps. Let me talk to a couple of football guys. That we're in the middle of season, that we're trying to stack steps. But you could go all the way back to June, July, August, where we're just putting in the work and we're just trying to stack steps, one on top of the other. The same thing is true in our faith walk. That every day it should just be a step that we're trying to stack. We're just trying to put these steps on top of each other to get to our eventual goal. So today, the step that I really want to encourage us to take is C, is this step of contribute. That we would look at our teams and we would ask ourselves, what value am I adding to the team? Am I contributing in a way that matters? Am I contributing? Am I stacking a step? Am I adding value to the team? And that team might be your sports team, your work team, your marriage, your team with Jesus, your team here at church. Am I adding value because I'm stacking steps and contributing in a way that matters? Well, how do I get there? Because it's not just super easy. It's not like, just contribute and it'll happen. No, to get there, there's some things we're going to have to do. And here's what I'd actually say. I'd say this statement to you, that if you want to contribute in a way that adds value to your team, if you want to contribute in a way that matters, set your mind, surrender your will, and then share in the glory. Set your mind and then surrender your will. That it starts with this idea of I got to set my mind. That I've got to set my mind on a task in a way that I'll add value to the team. See, here's the reality. Wherever you set your mind, that's going to be the level of your contribution. Like if I think I just want to make the team, well, then that will be my level of contribution. Or do I want to win the Sun Belt? Then I'll contribute it at a much higher level. Man, I'm hoping to get some playing time. Or I want to go to Omaha. The perspective that where I set my mind will determine my level of contribution. That I just want to be married. Or I want to be the best husband I can possibly be. I just want to be in a relationship. Or I want to be the best boyfriend or girlfriend I can be. That I just want to have a friend circle, or I want to add value to the friends I have in my life. You see what I'm getting at? Where we set our mind will determine how much value we add to the team and if our contribution actually matters. The issue is instead of thinking in an eternal perspective, instead of thinking and setting our mind on things of God, what we'll often do is we'll set our mind on things of earth. And so the only value we add is things that actually don't last. Like we'll add value, but it might not be value that leads to a contribution that matters. The Apostle Paul, he said it this way in Colossians chapter 3, it's verse 2. He said, think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. That what Paul is trying to get at is he's trying to say, listen, we got to change our focus. We got to put on our mind, we got to set our mind, we got to set our eyes on things that have eternal value, not just things of earth. And too many times in life, we go to work, we're just like, I'm just going to work. I'm just doing my job. We get married, we're just like, well, I'm married now. That I got friends, I just got friends now. That we think with this earthly mindset, which oftentimes means we think with selfish mindsets. Just a few verses later, Paul said it this way. I'm going to read it to you from my Bible. It says, "So put to death the sinful earthly things lurking within you. Have nothing to do with sexual immorality or impurity or lust or evil desires. Don't be greedy, for a greedy person is an idolater, worshiping things of this world." That what Paul is saying is he's like, change your focus. He said, you used to do these things when your life was still part of this world, but now is the time to get rid of anger and rage and malicious behavior and slander and dirty language. Don't lie to each other, for you've been stripped of your old life. That Paul is saying, set your mind not on yourself, not on sin, not on earthly things that add chaos to your team, but instead, set your mind on things above that add real value to your team, contribute in a way that matters. Wherever you set your focus, it's going to determine, do I bring chaos or do I bring value? Let me illustrate it this way. Anybody here ever play baseball or softball? Anybody? Raise your hand. All right. We all get it. It's a baseball bat, right? And I don't know if you've ever tried to balance a baseball bat before. It's actually not very difficult. Yet, before I go any further, I need to give a warning. You're sitting up front. And if you're sitting up front, you're in a danger zone because I'm going to try to balance this bat, all right? Which means I could fail and the bat could fly and hurt you or hurt me, all right? So pre-warning, I'm just letting y'all know, all right? Now, the reality is it should not be hard to balance a bat. But what oftentimes we will do is we'll think that the balancing the bat is all about my hand and focusing my eyes where my hand is. The problem is, if I focus my eyes right here, balancing this bat can be very difficult. And I am not purposely trying to move the bat. I'm just being honest with you that if my eyes are here, it becomes very difficult to balance a bat. And the reason why is because my perspective is wrong. I'm looking down, I'm setting my eyes low. The difference happens when I change my perspective. And when you start looking at the top of the bat, it's actually very easy to balance it. It's a piece of cake to balance it because my perspective is right. I'm setting my mind on things above. When I set my mind on things below, things get a little bit more difficult because my perspective is in the wrong place. And I think at times this is how we enter into our teams, that our perspective is down low. And if our perspective is down low, we actually add chaos to our teams. And what we need to do is change our focus and have an eternal mindset where we focus on things above and we say, God, I'm going to think about you when it comes to my team. And as I'm thinking about you, then it's going to add stability to my team. It's going to add value to my team. It's going to help me contribute in a way that matters. So my challenge to all of us is let's change our perspective by setting our minds on things above and surrendering your will. That we also have to surrender our will. See, that's the second side of the coin. Like if you could think of this idea, if I really want to contribute to my team in a way that matters, it's going to take two things. It's going to take one, me setting my mind, but the second thing it's going to take is me surrendering my will. Because if I set my mind on something, but I don't surrender my will, I'll never actually achieve whatever it is I set my mind to. Easy illustration of this. I set my mind to saying I want to get healthy, I want to lose weight, I want to be better when it comes to my physical fitness and my long-term health. But if I keep eating Krispy Kreme, it's not going to help my health. Am I right? You know what I'm saying? If I don't surrender my will and say no when people bring in donuts to the office, then I'm not ever going to get healthy. I can sit over here and say, man, I'm going to do better with my money. I'm going to live on a budget. I'm going to do what's right. But if I don't surrender my will and stop buying things I don't need, then it doesn't matter if I set my mind to something. That it's a twofold idea. It's the two sides of the coin. That if I want to contribute in a way that adds value to the team, that in a way that matters, then I have to set my mind, but then surrender my will. And again, athletes in the room, you should get this pretty easily. This idea of surrendering your will. Because you know, especially at a collegiate level, to play the game that you play means you have to surrender a lot of things. The time commitment, man, you got to surrender it. The waking up early in the morning and going to workouts and putting the work in the weight room and then putting the work in on your diet and your nutrition and then going to practice and going the extra mile and working hard, and then when practice ends, getting in a few extra swings or a few extra catches or whatever your sport might be, doing it all even when you're hurt. That's what it takes. You understand this idea, and I got to surrender my will because it's not about me. It's about the team. Guys, it's the exact same way for all of us. That if we want to make the team better, and again, that team might be your family, it might be your work, it might be your school. And I got to surrender my will. We have to surrender our will. That we got to do as Jesus said. Look at what he said here. He said, for you died to this life, and your real life is hidden with Christ in God. Like right there, for you died to this life. He's saying that you surrendered, that you gave up. And when I mean gave up, I mean gave up in a good way, that you said, all right, Jesus, you win. See, Jesus often said it this way. He said, anyone who wants to follow me must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Jesus said, if anybody wants to gain their life, they have to lose their life. That Jesus says we gotta be willing to surrender it all. And if we want to make the teams that we're involved in better, if we want to add value and contribute in a way that matters, and we got to have the end of self and surrender our will. We got to look and think about everything we do and say, everything I'm doing right now, Jesus, is for you. Look at this next verse. Work at everything you do with all your heart. Work as if you were working for the Lord. That Paul says, everything you do it as if you're working for God. That don't think I'm going to school for myself. Don't think I'm playing on this team for the others. No, I'm doing it all for God. And when I get that mindset, it means I've set my mind and I've surrendered my will. On Thursday night, I had an opportunity to have one of the coaches who attends the Rock come up and share the stage with me. His name's Ryan, Coach Ryan, and he serves the men's basketball team there at Coastal. Incredible dude. Just thankful for our friendship that has formed quickly. And we had a great conversation about this. I want you to hear his words because this is why I want you to hear it. Is he's saying it like as if he's speaking to his team, sure, and other coaches, sure. But what he shares really is something that anybody can apply. As a mom, a dad, a husband, a wife, a brother, a sister, a friend, to the place where you go and work tomorrow. Because I asked him, what does it really mean to set your mind on things above, on a higher calling when you go to work? What does it mean to surrender your will? Do me a favor, just check out the screen and see this conversation that Coach Ryan and I had. when you think about this idea of contributing, that we know from an athletic standpoint, it's critical. To be on a team, you got to contribute. When it comes to just you personally, like, how can we live this out? Like, let's take this first point that I mentioned, like, man, I got to set my mind on things above. Like, how do you, just as a man, a coach, a Christian, how do you live that out?
Yeah, it's so interesting you talk about that, because you can get consumed in this athletic world and just kind of make it all about basketball. And so for me, I was blessed about 6 years ago to go through a life plan, just try to figure out, like, why am I doing this? Like, where am I going with my career, and why do I feel like I'm called towards basketball? And I came up with a life purpose statement, a mission statement, what I was supposed to live out, and that was to recruit, raise up, and release. And when you think about in athletics, like, the constant job of a coach is to try to get someone to say yes to your team. Yeah. Like, how do you get them involved to say yes, to be a part of what you're doing? And to raise them up is to develop them, help them watch film, get them on the court, help them get better at their craft, and then release them into whatever their goals are next. And I kind of had this aha moment where I decided, like, this, it's not just about a sport. It's so much bigger than just the moment of a 4-year period. This is a life calling, and it really became a wake-up call for me that this is about your faith. And it's about recruiting people to faith, raising them up in their faith, and then releasing them into their own. And so it was just this moment for me that it gave me a calling so much bigger than just the game of basketball, but what the principles that you can take in for just the everyday when you walk into work, and it's about recruiting kids, it's about raising them up, and it's about releasing them. It's the same thing applied for me, and applying that eternal perspective into the faith aspect.
Yeah. And that's, I love that. And I think that's, I think we would all do well just to even put those. I might change my whole points here, that recruit and raise up and release, but it came from this eternal perspective of, I've got a higher calling in my life, and I hope that we all see that, whether you're a coach, whether you're a mom, whether you're an educator, whether you're drive a truck, whatever it might be, there's a higher purpose of it, that we're doing what we're doing. Yeah, and what about the second side of it is, so I got to set my mind on my higher calling, but then the second side of that is a surrendered will. What does that look like for you as a dad, as a husband, as a coach, as a follower of Christ?
Yeah, first of all, I really struggled with the word surrender, because as an athlete, as a coach, like, you think about surrender as like getting beat. Like I'm calling quits. And I think for me, I just had to focus on that word. And what that meant for me was, like, I have to lose in order to gain a Lord. And that was way different than I've had a perspective as before, because it's really a stance of open arms and submission to whatever you have for me. One of the verses that I think very highly of, and I've adopted each season for me, is 1 Peter 5:2, and it says, care for the flock that's been entrusted to you, watch over it willingly, not grudgingly, not for what you can get out of it, because you're eager to serve the Lord. And so for me, it's so easy in this profession to look at, how can you get to your next job, or how can you get to your next school, or even as an athlete, like, how can you transfer up or do whatever you need to do or become a pro? Like, there's so many different ways that you can look at what it is to be surrendered for your own self. But when you look at it from an eternal perspective and saying, how can I serve God, and eager to do that, I think it just changes your mindset when you walk in about being fully surrendered to what God has for you.
I mean, I hope you catch what Ryan was saying there. I just think it's a perfect answer, a perfect mindset for us all to recognize that we've got to set our mind. We have an eternal perspective. For him, it isn't just about coaching basketball, but it's actually about raising young men up and releasing them to do the things that God has called them to do. That change of perspective, that what it does is it allows you to look at your marriage and say, man, I'm not just in a marriage. What I'm doing is I'm trying to be the best husband I can, the best wife I can, so that our marriage is a godly example to others to follow. That I'm not just raising kids, right? Like if we're not careful, we just think, I'm just trying to raise my kids. No, what you're doing is you see the value of your children and that God has given them to you so that you can raise them up as Christ followers, as young men and young women who are on mission after God. That I'm not just in a dating relationship. No, I'm living this dating relationship out in a way that will bring honor and glory to God. I've changed my perspective. I'm not just going to work tomorrow. I'm going to work to make an eternal difference in people's lives. You see, we gotta shift our mindset. We gotta change our mindset. We gotta set our mind on higher things and then surrender our will to say, God, whatever it is that you would have me to do tomorrow, I have open hands. Whatever it is you would have me to do today, I have open hands. That I've surrendered it all to you, Jesus, because I'm not here to serve myself. I am here to add value to my team and to contribute in a way that matters. And the way that it matters is when I point people towards you. Well, how do I get there? Well, I just give Jesus my whole life. You want to get there? You want to get there to where you're contributing in a way that matters? Just give Jesus your whole life. Look at the last part of this verse. And when Christ, who is your life, like don't miss that, Christ, who is your life. Like notice what it says there and notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say when Christ, who is part of your life. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say when Christ, who is 10% of your life, or when Christ, who is a certain percentage of your life, when Christ gets an hour and 10 minutes of your life, when Christ is this little part. It doesn't say any of that. No, what it says is when Christ is your whole life. When Christ is your whole life, you will share in his glory. Like, I don't know if you saw that part of the verse. It's such a crazy part. That Paul says that we get to share in the glory of Christ. How crazy is that? Like everything we do it for the glory of God. We do it for the glory of Jesus. Yet, we are told in Scripture, we get to share in that glory. This summer, a guy named Bryson DeChambeau, he's a professional golfer. He won the U.S. Open. And when he received the trophy, he said, man, I'm up here today and I've been able to win today because of all of you fans and what you've done to help me get here. So I want you to share in this trophy with me. And he did what never happens in the golf world. He just ran out into the crowd. And everybody who was there everybody started touching the trophy. Everybody got to hold the trophy. That they all got to share in the glory of that moment. And I'll tell you right now, if I would have been there, I would have been going, yeah, right? I mean, like, let me touch it. And I don't even like Bryson DeChambeau. But in the moment, I would have been sucked in. I've been like, let me touch that thing. Because that's what happens. When we see people win, when we see championships happen, that we're all like, man, I want in. When the football team wins the championship and the confetti flies, we're like, yes. When the rings come in, we're like, oh, let me put it on. That when the team wins at Omaha, we're like, yeah, we all want to be a part of that. And I want you to be a part of that. But listen. That doesn't hold a candle to the glory of Jesus Christ. It doesn't hold a candle to it. As awesome as it is and as awesome as it will be to have a celebration like that, it's nowhere close to what will happen on the day that Jesus returns to this earth. And everybody will see it. Everybody will see the glory of Jesus. And the crazy thing is he will look at those who have set their mind. He will look to those who have surrendered their will. He will look to those who have said, Jesus, you have my whole life. And he will say, come share in my glory. Come share in my glory. And we will get to spend all of eternity in heaven in his glory. But why wait till then? When you can share in his glory today. Because the minute you surrender your life to Jesus, you get to start sharing in his glory right then. So I want to give you that opportunity right now. And if you would, if everybody here would just do me a favor and stand up together. We're going to go into a time of response. And we do this every week at The Rock. I say it's the most important part of our service, and here's why. Because it is during this time of our service that we're responding to Jesus. It's at this time that we're taking steps. See, I've spent a little bit of time sharing with you about God, hoping that maybe that we would learn some things about Jesus. But now's where the rubber meets the road. Now's the time to respond. Now's the time to take a literal step. And for some of you, it'll be coming up front, taking a step and taking communion. For some of you, it'll be taking a step and praying with somebody in one of our Connect Corners. We have prayer counselors who are standing there who would love to pray with you. Maybe for you, it's taking a step of baptism. Maybe for you, it's taking a step saying, I'm going to set my mind. I'm going to surrender my will. Because I want to add value to my team and contribute in a way that matters. How do we do it? Take a step. Say to Jesus right now, Jesus, I'm available. You hear those words? I'll follow. Will you take a step? A step to contribute and say, Jesus, here I am. I'm available. Let's take some steps.